Air travel may seem safe and ordinary, but after hearing what a flight attendant has witnessed over 30 years, you'll never look at flying the same way again. From the skies come some of the most unbelievable stories ever told, and you're about to hear them. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss the journey ahead. Fasten your seatbelts, because takeoff starts now. Her name was Margaret Maggie Collins, a 22-year-old from a small coastal town in Ireland. In the spring of 1994, she traded the familiar scent of salty sea air for the sterile chill of an airport terminal. She still remembers the day she put on her crisp navy blue uniform for the first time. The golden wings pinned to her chest, glinting under the fluorescent lights. A silent promise that she was about to see the world. Back then, air travel still had a certain elegance. Passengers dressed as though they were attending a special occasion. The crew, too, carried themselves like ambassadors of the skies. Maggie, with her bright smile and unshakable poise, fit right in. But beneath that calm surface, her mind swirled with excitement and a little fear. What would it be like to spend hours above the clouds? To be responsible for hundreds of lives at 35,000 feet? Her first flight was from Dublin to New York. She remembers the hum of the engines as the aircraft taxied down the runway, the weightless lift in her stomach as the plane climbed into a pale blue sky. In that moment, she thought her job would be nothing but glamorous adventures and postcard-worthy destinations. She couldn't have been more wrong. In the years that followed, Maggie's career would take her to every corner of the globe, from the humid streets of Bangkok to the snowy runways of Moscow. She'd serve coffee to Hollywood celebrities, comfort crying children, and deal with the occasional grumpy passenger. But among the long-haul flights, jet lag, and endless safety demonstrations, she would also witness events so strange, so unexpected, that even now she hesitates to talk about them. There was the time a passenger vanished mid-flight without explanation. Another time, turbulence knocked over a trolley, revealing something hidden inside that she still can't forget. And then there were the whispered stories among the crew, the kind you only hear after years of service, passed down in quiet galley conversations, always with a knowing look. 30 years later, Maggie has seen it all. But today, she's finally ready to share the most unforgettable moments of her career, the ones that never made it into the flight logs, the ones that happened behind the thin curtain separating the passengers from the crew's hidden world. Maggie's first encounter with the truly bizarre happened in 1998, 4 years into her career. It was a red-eye flight from London to Johannesburg, a route she had done countless times before. The passengers were mostly business travelers, a few families, and a group of tourists heading for a safari holiday. About 3 hours into the flight, as the cabin lights were dimmed and most passengers had settled into uneasy airplane sleep, a faint chime rang from the call button in seat 42A. Maggie walked down the aisle, the soft hum of the engines filling the silence, and stopped beside the seat. It was empty. She frowned, checked the seat number again, then peeked over to the middle and window seats, both occupied by sleeping passengers who seemed undisturbed. Thinking it was a malfunction, she reached up and reset the call button. As she turned to walk away, it lit up again. Same seat. Same eerie glow in the darkened cabin. Maggie leaned down and whispered to the passenger in 42B, "Excuse me, did you press the call button?" The man blinked awake, confused. Number Y? By the time she returned to the galley, a fellow crew member, Tom, raised an eyebrow. 42A? He asked quietly. She nodded. He didn't smile. You've heard the story, right? She hadn't. Tom lowered his voice. 5 years ago, a man on this route, same seat, died mid-flight. Heart attack. Ever since, some crews swear the call button goes off on night flights, even when it's empty. Maggie laughed it off at the time. But over the years, she noticed that certain stories, no matter how absurd, had a strange way of repeating themselves. Incident 2. The passenger who wasn't on the manifest. In 2005, Maggie was working a Tokyo to Los Angeles flight when she spotted a middle-aged woman in a beige coat quietly sipping tea near the back of the aircraft. Something about her seemed off. Maybe it was the way she kept glancing around, or the fact that Maggie didn't recall seeing her during boarding. After service, Maggie checked the passenger manifest. No one matched the description. She discreetly asked 2 other crew members if they had seen the woman. Both shook their heads. When Maggie returned to check, the seat was empty. The teacup, untouched, sat neatly on the tray table. The rest of the flight passed without incident, but when they landed and security boarded to investigate, the seat appeared exactly as it had before departure. No cup, no coat, no trace. Incident 3. The galley secret. There was also the galley secret, a rumor that persisted among the most senior crew members. On certain aircraft, in one of the aft galleys, there was a narrow storage compartment behind a removable panel. Officially, it was for electrical wiring. Unofficially, some said it had been used to hide items during long-haul flights in the late 80s and early 90s, before security protocols became stricter. Maggie didn't believe it until a turbulent night over the Atlantic, when a catering trolley tipped over and banged against the panel. It popped loose, revealing a hollow space. Inside was a small velvet pouch, dusty with age. She opened it just enough to see something glint. A gold locket, old and intricately carved. She zipped it back shut before anyone else noticed. To this day, she has never told anyone what she did with it. Incident 4. The storm flight. Not all strange events were supernatural. Some were simply unnerving, like the storm flight of 2010, when the aircraft hit the worst turbulence Maggie had ever experienced. Oxygen masks dangled, overhead bins flew open, and one passenger, pale and shaking, muttered in a language she didn't understand, clutching a worn photograph. After they landed, Maggie asked a colleague who spoke the language what the woman had been saying. The translation chilled her. She says the storm was trying to stop her from arriving, that it had happened to her before. Incident 5. The disappearing luggage tag. In 2015, on a layover in Dubai, Maggie was helping a passenger retrieve a missing suitcase from the hold. The bag was eventually located, but when she checked the tag, something strange stood out. The name was hers. Same spelling, same middle initial. Confused, she brought it to the baggage office, but by the time the attendant returned with her, the tag had vanished, replaced by one with the correct passenger's details. They both stood there in silence, the attendant finally muttering, "That's impossible. We don't reprint tags mid-process." Maggie never spoke of it again, but for months afterward, She couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere, in some parallel version of events, that suitcase had indeed belonged to her. Incident 6. The Man in Seat 9. C. The strangest event came in 2019. A flight from Athens to New York was delayed at the gate for nearly 2 hours. When they finally took off, Maggie noticed an elderly man in seat 9C, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, hands folded neatly in his lap. He didn't eat, didn't drink, and barely moved the entire journey. When the plane landed, Maggie stood at the door to bid farewell to the passengers, but 9C never passed her. When she went back to check, the seat was empty, pristine, as though no one had sat there at all. Later, reviewing the passenger list, there was no record of anyone assigned to 9C on that flight. But when she mentioned it to the captain, his expression darkened. "That's not the first time someone's reported seeing him," he said. "Same description, same seat, over the years." Over 3 decades, Maggie collected dozens of these moments, fragments of stories that never made it into official reports, whispered tales from behind the curtain, incidents that left even the most seasoned crew members unsettled. And yet, for all the oddities and scares, she kept flying. Why? Because each time the engines roared to life, she felt a strange pull, as though the sky itself still had secrets left to show her. Now, sitting in her quiet home, her uniform neatly folded away in a drawer, Maggie looks back and realizes that her career was not just about serving meals and ensuring safety. It was about witnessing the hidden side of human nature, and sometimes the unexplainable forces that seem to move between the clouds. It had been almost 30 years since Maggie first stepped into her navy blue uniform. In that time, she had flown across every continent, touched down in over 70 countries, and seen the world shift in ways she could never have imagined. The seats got smaller, the passengers more impatient. But the skies, those endless, shimmering skies, remained unchanged. Her last scheduled flight was from Sydney to London, a marathon route she had done countless times before. But this one felt different. Even during briefing, there was a strange undercurrent in the air, an unspoken tension that passed between the crew like static. Boarding was uneventful, though Maggie couldn't help noticing a man in a charcoal suit sitting in seat 9C. The description matched the phantom passenger she had heard about for years, the one she herself had seen in 2019. His hands rested neatly on a leather briefcase, his expression unreadable. She told herself it was just a coincidence. Once airborne, the hours passed in a slow, rhythmic routine. Meal service, cabin checks, polite conversation with frequent flyers who knew it was her final trip. Somewhere over the Indian Ocean, the cabin lights dimmed, and Maggie allowed herself a quiet moment in the galley, sipping tea and thinking of all the faces she'd met in the air. That's when she felt it, the unmistakable press of the call button. She glanced at the panel. 42A. Her chest tightened. That seat had been empty when they left Sydney. She walked down the aisle, her steps quiet against the carpet. The seat was indeed empty. And yet, a single folded napkin lay across the armrest. On it, in neat handwriting, were the words, "Thank you for looking after us." Her hands trembled. She scanned the cabin. All passengers appeared to be asleep. A sudden urge made her turn toward 9C, but the seat was now vacant. The briefcase, the man, gone. Back in the galley, Maggie slipped the napkin into her pocket, trying to focus on her duties. But deep down, she knew something had shifted. As the wheels touched down at Heathrow, she felt the familiar thud of reality returning. The passengers disembarked, one by one. Maggie stood at the door, smiling, saying her last goodbyes. The final traveler stepped off the jet bridge, and then, in the now empty cabin, she heard a voice behind her. "Ready for the next one?" She turned. A woman in an older version of the airline's uniform stood by the aft galley, her hair pinned in the 1980s style. She looked young, vibrant, and entirely out of place. "I'm sorry," Maggie began. "Are you—" But the woman was already walking down the aisle, fading into the shadows between rows, until she was gone. That night, at home, Maggie placed the napkin in a small box where she kept her most treasured mementos. Inside were other reminders of her career: a gold locket from a hidden galley panel, a photograph of the storm passenger, and a luggage tag with her own name printed twice. She stared at the items, a thought creeping into her mind. Perhaps she hadn't just been a witness to strange events. Perhaps, in some way, she had been part of them. Maggie smiled softly, her fingers brushing over the napkin's words one last time. Then she closed the box, slid it into the back of her closet, and turned off the light. In the silence, somewhere far above, a call button chimed. If you felt as excited listening to this story as I did telling it, don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like. Every day, I'll bring you a brand new story from the skies and the heart of the airports. Until our next flight together, take care.